Right now, an extreme heat warning is in force across the Coachella Valley in Southern California. Forecast highs run 114 to 120 degrees, peaking today in the hottest valley communities between 115 and 120. Overnight lows sit in the mid-80s to mid-90s, and across the wider Mojave and southern Nevada zone, 80 to 95 degrees before sunrise. 7 separate forecast offices are carrying simultaneous extreme heat warnings across 3 states, running until 8 p.m., Monday, July 27th. This is not a normal desert summer week. Something significant is happening. Today, we are going to break down exactly where this heat is worst, exactly why the nights matter more than the afternoons, and exactly what the death records from the last 3 summers reveal about who this actually kills. No guessing, no dramatizing. Just the facts, the science, and the real stakes. Before we go any further, one question for you in the comments. Has your air conditioner ever quit on you in the middle of a heat wave? And how long did it take to get somebody out to fix it? The answers matter, because that gap between the moment the unit dies and the moment somebody arrives to fix it is the story of this entire video. If you want to follow this story past the graphics, subscribe. The warning expires Monday evening, but forecasters already expect a second warming trend into the start of August, and the heat death investigations from this week will not be resolved for months. This channel will be tracking the streak count, the overnight lows, and the death investigations long after the cameras leave. Now, the warning itself. The National Weather Service in San Diego issued it at 1:25 p.m. Pacific time on Friday, July 24th. The text was last refreshed at 3:57 in the morning on Saturday. July 25th, it reads, in plain terms, that dangerously hot conditions with temperatures of 114 to 120 degrees are expected, and that today, the peak of the event, the hottest desert communities will sit between 115 and 120. Then comes the line almost nobody is reading out loud. Overnight lows will only fall into the mid-80s to mid-90s. That is the sentence forecasters wrote on purpose. Extreme heat warning is the highest heat alert forecasters can issue. They use it only for the hottest days of the year when they expect the heat to actually hurt people rather than simply make them uncomfortable. The alert also carries a heat risk rating. Heat risk is a 4-step scale for how dangerous heat is to the human body. This event sits at step 3, moving into step 4, the level where the heat can harm anyone, not only the elderly or the sick. The warning is stamped to expire at 8:09 p.m. Pacific time on Monday, July 27th. The machine timestamp under it reads 03:00 UTC on July 28th. That detail matters. It proves the warning was written from the start as a multi-day event, not extended day by day as things got worse. Forecasters saw 4 consecutive nights of no recovery coming, and they put it on the map before the first hot afternoon arrived. The named zones are the Coachella Valley, the San Diego County deserts, and the San Gorgonio Pass near Banning. The San Gorgonio Pass is the wind gap between the mountains where hot air from the desert funnels west. In the valley itself, the warning covers Palm Springs, Cathedral City, Palm Desert, Indian Wells, La Quinta, Indio, Coachella, Thermal, and Mecca. That is roughly 45 miles of highway from end to end, with a temperature spread of 6 to 8 degrees between the cool end at the pass and the hot end near the Salton Sea. One warning, 2 different realities. Buried inside the text is a phrase that changes how you read the whole thing. The forecast discussion describes the risk as major to locally extreme. Major to locally extreme means the heat will hurt healthy adults, not only vulnerable ones. That language does not appear in the average summer alert. It appears when the office has run the numbers and decided the danger is no longer selective. That warning covers one valley. It is one of 7. San Diego, Las Vegas, Hanford, Los Angeles, Oxnard, Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff. 7 National Weather Service forecast offices, all issuing the top-tier heat product at the same time across 3 states. Let that number land before we start walking through them. The Las Vegas office covers the largest desert footprint. Their warning forecasts 108 to 114 degrees in most desert valleys, above 115 along the Colorado River Valley, and approaching 120 in Death Valley National Park. Overnight lows, they run 80 to 95. The cities inside that zone include Las Vegas, Henderson, North Las Vegas, Boulder City, Laughlin, Needles, Baker, Barstow, and 29 Palms. That is roughly 3 million people spread across small towns and 1 very large metro. The Phoenix office is carrying 2 warnings at once. The first covers the Phoenix metro, with forecast highs from 105 to 118 degrees. That is the largest population block inside this entire event, more than 4.9 million people in Maricopa County alone. The second Phoenix warning covers the lower Colorado River Valley, the Imperial Valley, the Salton Sea, Blythe, Yuma, and Joshua Tree National Park, with highs from 103 to 119 degrees. The Tucson office is running its own warning, highs of 105 to 112 degrees, overnight lows of 82 to 88 degrees. Roughly 1 million people live in that zone, and the forecast discussion uses the phrase little or no overnight cooling. That is a specific term of art. It means the air will not drop far enough during the night for the body to reset before the next afternoon begins. The Hanford office, which covers the southern San Joaquin Valley and the western Mojave, has the warning up for Indian Wells Valley and Mojave, Ridgecrest, California City, and Edwards Air Force Base. The Los Angeles Oxnard office covers the Antelope Valley, including Lancaster and Palmdale, home to roughly 500,000 people combined. The Flagstaff office is the one everybody underestimates. Their warning is for the Grand Canyon, but only below the 4,000-foot elevation line. That line matters. It is called an elevation threshold. Heat sinks and pools in low ground, so forecasters draw a height line on the map and issue the warning only for everything underneath it. Below that line, at Phantom Ranch, on the canyon floor, the forecast is 112 to 114 degrees. The National Park Service, on the strength of that warning, has told hikers not to descend more than 1.5 miles below the Bright Angel Trailhead and to avoid strenuous activity between 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. When a warning is written with a descent limit in it, rescues are the expected failure, not the unexpected one. The reason all 7 offices are lit up at once is a single feature on the weather map, a high-pressure ridge, sometimes called a heat dome, that is a large dome of sinking air parked over the region. It acts like a lid, pressing the heat down and holding clouds and rain out for days at a time. This particular ridge is anchored over the 4 corners and extending west, which is why the same warning language shows up in San Diego and in Flagstaff at the same hour. And every one of those 7 offices flagged the same second number. Here is why. The human body does not measure the afternoon, it measures the total. Every hour above about 95 degrees adds to a load your heart and skin are trying to shed. The only window you get to shed it is the overnight low. Overnight low, sometimes called the minimum temperature, is the coolest the air gets before sunrise. It is the only window your body has to unload the heat it stored all day. When that number stays in the 90s, the body never resets. In this event, the overnight lows are mid-80s to mid-90s in the valley, 80 to 95 across the Mojave and southern Nevada, 82 to 88 in Tucson. A 95-degree overnight low is warmer than the average summer afternoon in most of the country. And this is not one night, it is 4. From Friday, July 24th through Monday, July 27th, 4 consecutive nights of no recovery. That is historically the exact window when hospital admissions for heat illness climb. There is a second variable stacked on top of the temperature, the dew point. Dew point is a measure of how much moisture is packed into the air. The higher it climbs, the less your sweat can evaporate, which means the same temperature does more damage to you. Right now, dew points across the warning zone are running in the 60s, with some locations in the 70s. That moisture is coming from monsoon moisture. Monsoon moisture is humid air pulled north into the desert in summer, which can bring storms. This week, it is bringing only the stickiness without the rain. Here is the comparison that carries the section. 115 degrees with a 70-degree dew point loads the body harder than 118 degrees in dry air. The dry heat can still be shed through sweat. The sticky heat cannot. That is why the same afternoon temperature can kill in one week and be survivable in another. And here is why fans are not the answer people think they are. Above about 95 degrees, a fan stops cooling the skin because the air it is moving is already warmer than the body. At 115 degrees, a fan is pushing hot air across skin. It can add heat rather than remove it. The only machine that actually works in this environment is one that pulls heat out of the air. Air conditioning. Right now, in the valley, that machine is the difference between a warning and a death certificate. And if the nights are, what do the damage? Then someone has already counted what happens when the machine fails. Among indoor heat deaths in Maricopa County in 2025, an air conditioner was present in the home in 94% of cases. Read that back. 94%. Almost every single person who died indoors from heat in Maricopa County last year already owned the machine that would have saved them. In 72% of those cases, the unit was not functioning. 72%. Not missing, not absent, broken. These people were not caught outside without shelter. They were not tourists who did not know the desert. They were at home, in their own beds, in their own living rooms, beside a machine that had stopped working. The Maricopa County Department of Public Health tracks these deaths more carefully than any other county in the United States, because they have to. In 2023, they recorded 645 heat-related deaths. That is still the county record. In 2024, 608. In 2025, 430. A heat-related death, as counted by a medical examiner, is a death where heat either caused it directly or pushed an existing heart, lung, or kidney condition past the breaking point. That is why the official count keeps climbing for weeks and months after the heat is gone. Autopsies take time. Toxicology takes longer. Of those 608 deaths in 2024, 46% involved heart or lung disease as a contributing cause. That is cardiopulmonary disease, heart and lung illness. And it is the reason heat turns far more dangerous after about age 55, because the heart has to work much harder to push blood to the skin to cool the body. When that heart is already weakened, the extra load is the load that stops it. Maricopa County Public Health uses one specific word about these deaths: preventable. Not tragic, not unavoidable, preventable. That word carries a lot of weight in a medical examiner's report, because it means someone in the department has decided the death did not have to happen. Here is the number that turns the whole picture. The 2026 heat death count in Maricopa County is currently running ahead of the 2025 pace. Officials have attributed part of that to an unusually warm spring, which meant bodies were already heat depleted before June arrived. July is historically the deadliest month of the heat season. We are inside July right now. So take the 94% and hold it against the calendar. Almost every indoor heat death last year happened in a home with an air conditioner. 72% of those units were broken. The count this year is already ahead of last year, and we are in the deadliest month, in the middle of a 4-night stretch where the outside air will not cool below the mid-80s. That is why the phrase extreme heat warning is not about the afternoon reading on your car dashboard. It is about the machine in your window and whether it still runs at 3 in the morning. A broken air conditioner is not a weather problem. It is a repair bill. Riverside County Public Health, which covers the Coachella Valley, discovered something during the last heat season that reframes how you should read this event. They found residents were sitting in public cooling centers specifically, so they would not have to run the air conditioners they already owned at home. A cooling center, sometimes called a respite site, is a public building with air conditioning kept open so that people without working cooling at home have somewhere safe to sit through the hottest hours of the day. In this case, people were using them not because their unit was broken, because they could not afford the electricity to run it. Riverside County has now stated publicly that at these temperatures, it would be potentially dangerous not to run an air conditioner. That is the county telling residents the choice between the bill and the machine is not really a choice. The pathway they built runs like this. Seniors over 65 are told to run the unit at home. Then they are told to apply to the county office on aging for help with the resulting bill. 211, the 3-digit hotline, is the single access line for cooling assistance in both Riverside County, California, and Maricopa County, Arizona. One number, 2 states, millions of people. Here is who those millions actually are. Roughly 500,000 year-round residents live in the Coachella Valley. In the city of Coachella itself, at the hot end of the valley, the population is 307. Of that number, 4,177 are seniors. Not thousands. 4,177. That is a countable number. That is a number small enough to knock on every door. Push farther east and you reach the eastern Coachella Valley farm worker communities. Roughly 88,000 residents. Older mobile homes, thin walls, aging or undersized cooling units. Those units were built for a different climate than the one arriving this weekend. The valley runs 45 miles from the San Gorgonio Pass down to the Salton Sea, with that 6 to 8 degree spread from end to end. One warning covers Palm Springs and it covers Mecca. Those are 2 different weeks inside the same alert. There will be no evacuations. Heat events never produce them. There's no coastline to flee, no cone of uncertainty on a map, no line of fire on a ridge. The disaster happens indoors, one home at a time, and that is exactly why this hazard stays undercovered. So, the question nobody is asking, and the one this video is going to sit on for a moment, is this: if almost everyone who dies indoors already owns an air conditioner, and 72% of the units in those deaths were broken, who is checking whether those units still work before the night the temperature stops falling? Because right now, the answer in most of the valley is nobody. There is no inspector. There is no routine visit. The check happens when a family member calls, or when a neighbor notices the curtains have not moved, or it does not happen at all. So the question stops being how hot it gets, and becomes how long it stays. Put today in its place against the record book, honestly. 120 degrees is not a record. The Palm Springs all-time high is 124 degrees, set on July 5th, 2024 at 1:53 in the afternoon. Before that, Palm Springs hit 123 degrees on 4 separate occasions. August 1st, 1993, July 28th, 1995, July 29th, 1995, and June 17th, 2021. 3 of those 4 fall inside the exact late July window we are in right now. That is not a coincidence, that is a climatology. The last week of July is when the desert historically peaks. Death Valley reached 120.9 degrees on July 15th, 2026. That was the hottest reading anywhere in the United States this year. It happened 10 days before this event. And Furnace Creek, inside that same park, holds a number that is not just a national record. 130 degrees, measured on August 16th, 2020, and again on July 9th, 2021. That remains the highest reliably measured temperature on Earth. The park under warning today is the same park, but the metric that matters is not the peak, it is the streak. The Coachella Valley record for consecutive days at or above 115 degrees is 9, set in 2021. 9 days in a row where the daytime never dropped below the danger line. That is the record that decides body counts, not the single afternoon reading on any one day. From here, forecasters see 4 escalation paths. 1. The ridge holds through the middle of next week, and this streak breaks the 2021 record. 2. A single transformer or feeder failure during a 95-degree overnight low removes cooling from a neighborhood at the worst possible hour. That is not hypothetical. Utilities across the Southwest have already stated the grid is running near design limits this weekend. 3. A medical surge, with the 2026 count already running ahead of the 2025 pace before this event even began. 4. A partial easing into the low 110s early next week, followed by a renewed warming trend at the end of next week and into the start of August, arriving on a population that is already heat depleted. That last path is the one to watch. Recovery weeks in this climate are not really recoveries. They are the window between events. And this is not the first event of the summer. Extreme heat alerts covered portions of 31 U.S. states on June 29, 2026. Salt Lake City and Billings both set all-time high temperature records on July 13, 2026. This is the third major heat episode of the summer, not the first, which means the bodies inside those homes have been carrying heat load since the spring. The forecast for this week is finished. The count is not. The true toll of this event will not be known until autumn. The medical examiner reports take months. Toxicology takes longer. Cases get reclassified. Numbers move upward for weeks after the temperature drops. So the honest answer, the one this channel is going to keep tracking, is that we will not know for a while yet. But we do know this. In 2023, Maricopa County recorded 645 heat-related deaths. In 2025, that same county, in the same desert, under the same sun, recorded 430. The desert did not get 1/3 cooler in those 2 years. Nothing about the sun changed. Nothing about the latitude changed. Nothing about the ridge changed. What changed was how many cooling center hours were open, how many outreach workers were sent to check on people living alone, and how many broken air conditioners got found before the night they mattered. 215 people. That is the gap between those two numbers. That gap is not a weather statistic. It is a policy outcome. The forecast decides the temperature. It does not decide who survives it. That decision gets made in the weeks before the heat arrives, in county offices, in neighborhood checklists, in the phone call somebody either makes or does not make to the widow 2 doors down. So here's the ask for the comments. Name the last time you had your air conditioning unit actually serviced. Not the last time you turned it on, the last time a technician stood in front of it with a gauge. Give the month. Then name one person in your neighborhood who lives alone and would have nobody to call if their unit quit at 2 a.m. Give the first name, month, and first name. The specificity is the point, because a vague plan is what fails at 2 a.m. If you want to follow this past the point where the temperature graphics disappear, subscribe. The warning lifts Monday at 8 p.m., but the streak count keeps running. A second warming trend is already forecast into the start of August, and the death investigations from this week will not close for months. This channel follows the story past the point where everyone else moves on. Last thing, send this video to one person over 65 who lives in a desert county. Not as a favor, as a function. Because the single action inside these 10 minutes is testing the unit before the night it is needed. That test is what puts one more name on the 430 side of the ledger and one fewer on the 645 side. Make the call today. The forecast is already written. The count is not.